Pakistan found the integration very easy, integration into the Chinese platforms and Chinese defense systems, because Pakistan's defense hardware and the platforms are largely Chinese made. Just because the F-16s is a very old sort of story for Pakistan, but the last 10, 15 years have seen an uh, unparalleled cooperation between China and Pakistan. And that's why Pakistan, I think, is the only country that possesses this state-of-the-art J-10C aircraft, which basically demonstrated its maneuverability and its capabilities. Whereas in the integration of the Rafale systems into the Indian Army, which basically uses the American as well as the Russian technologies also. So it had been, I guess, a problem. Because I was told by the aviation experts that it takes a couple of years, at least a couple of years, for any Air Force to fully integrate a new platform, a new defense system, particularly a complicated aircraft like Rafale into its defense air defense system. So that this is what made the difference, that Pakistanis were already very well anchored into the Chinese system because of the hardware cooperation as well as logistical training cooperation that has been going on, whereas the Indians still were working and training on the Rafale. And also we have to keep in mind, it's not just the machine. Well, I think we have to be clear, this is an era for kinetic operations, and mostly all through the drones, the way we have witnessed, the way India sent nearly 100 drones deep into Pakistani territory, as well as the aircraft, the jets, which fired missiles from inside the Indian territory onto 9 targets inside Pakistan. So I think both countries have been ready, both are cognizant of the fact that this is the age for drones, for kinetic operations. And Pakistan basically demonstrated that it was very well equipped to intercept and also to attack the aircraft that were targeting Pakistan. I think this display of air superiority, sort of, the ability to fight back in the air by the Pakistan Air Force with the help of J-10C aircraft, with the help of the PLE 15 air-to-air missiles, has basically shown that this had been a contest basically between the Chinese technology and the pride of Europe and France, and that was Rafale, as well as their arsenal that also comprises the Su-30s, Su-29s, and MiGs, basically the Russian aircraft. But this time, if you go by the Indian narratives, they basically had touted the air superiority over Pakistan after acquiring the 36 Rafale aircraft. But I think the machines, the Chinese-made machines, as well as those who were operating those machines, disproved that notion, basically shattered the notion of Indian air superiority over the skies in the region. So this shows that Pakistan, with the support of the Chinese friends, there was a lot of Chinese surveillance, satellite communication and satellite support available to Pakistani Air Force to identify the targets, identify the incoming aircraft, as well as guide them. Eventually what happened, what we saw a few hours ago, the jamming of the military communications satellites of the Indians, as well as pin precise targets, the Udhampur and Avantipur and Srinagar airport. And so all this basically shows that Pakistan had prepared itself very well in the last 3 days, was looking, waiting for it, and then basically unleashed its response. And this is the first phase of this war, which can basically, let's hope, doesn't escalate into the second phase, which would be deadly, which could be deadly actually for both countries. Pakistan found the integration very easy, integration into the Chinese platforms and Chinese defense systems, because Pakistan's defense hardware and the platforms are largely Chinese made. Just because the F-16s is a very old sort of story for Pakistan, but the last 10-15 years have seen an unparalleled cooperation between China and Pakistan. And that's why Pakistan, I think, is the only country that possesses this state-of-the-art J-10C aircraft, which basically demonstrated its maneuverability and its capabilities. Whereas in the integration of the Rafale systems into the Indian Army, which basically uses the American as well as the Russian technologies also. So it had been, I guess, a problem. Because I was told by the aviation experts that it takes a couple of years, at least a couple of years, for any Air Force to fully integrate a new platform, a new defense system, particularly a complicated aircraft like Rafale into its defense air defense system. So that this is what made the difference, that Pakistanis were already very well anchored into the Chinese system because of the hardware cooperation as well as logistical training cooperation that has been going on, whereas the Indians still were working and training on the Rafale. And also we have to keep in mind, it's not just the machine, it takes the training, it takes planning, immaculate planning, and it takes also valor, the courage, the mindset of the pilot who is flying that machine. So there are multiple factors basically which were on display during this so-called dogfight. We don't know whether it was a dogfight or not. Indians are disputing that. But the fact that now the Americans have also confirmed that Pakistan shot down at least 3 Rafales and 2 other aircraft. And that's why the Indian government, Mr. Modi, is under extreme pressure. Just to explain the truth, and the pressure is manifest in the sense that Mr. Praveen Sahni, who is one of the strategic affairs analysts, he released a video of about 11 minutes and he concluded, based on the reports that were coming from the India Today, from the Hindu, that India had lost at least 3 aircraft. So that video was blocked, was taken off his YouTube, which is called The Force. And then he appeared in an interview with Karan Thapar on The Print. Even that, The Print has also been blocked. Because in both interviews, Praveen Sahni said that India is a big democracy and it should behave like a democracy and share the truth with the people. But then the Indian government basically took offense and blocked all his interviews. So this is the kind of pressure that the Indian government is facing right now, and it's a huge embarrassment, because it was the Indian Prime Minister who had said that we will ensure air dominance over Pakistan once we have the Rafales. So with the end result that they lost 3 of the 36 aircraft, and now questions are being raised about the preparedness, about the integration of the Rafales into the Indian air defense system. This I'm not sure, because the avionics is something that is not like impossible to integrate, but integration does take time. Because if a Su-30 is equipped with a technology that is 10 years old, then obviously it may probably find it difficult to communicate with a French fighter or with the American fighter. But the advantage for Pakistan was, because it was J-10C and JF-17 Thunder, that they have the same technology. And that's why they were able even to intercept the communication of the Indian Rafales, which I think the armed forces and our PAF spokesperson also explained, that The name of one of the Rafale aircraft was Godzilla, the code name. So this was the extent to which Pakistani aircraft could get access to the Indian aircraft. So I think integration does represent a problem, whether they can communicate with each other or not so easily. That's a question, I think, for the aviation experts. Look, whatever happened on May 10th, after around 4 a.m., was all the first phase retaliation by Pakistan. For 3 running days, 3 to 4 consecutive days, India had been in a provocative mode. First, they targeted 9 sites inside, 4 of them inside Pakistan. So this is the first big provocation, and which was short of declaration of war. Then the next day, they sent dozens of drones deep into the Pakistani territory, as far as Rawalpindi, very close to the general headquarters, close to and in fact outside the stadium where the Pakistan Super League matches were being held. So the ball was always on their court. Pakistan waited and waited, did not want to be seen as having retaliated in a big way. But then when the Indians attacked the air base in Peshawar, the Noor Khan base in Rawalpindi, and Shorkot base somewhere near Sindh, I think that was the red line that the Indians crossed. And that was a time when responding to the Indian violations became inevitable. It left Pakistan with no option but to retaliate. Otherwise, there would have been big questions asked as to what our army is waiting for, what is it doing. It's a very well kept army, very well fed. So there would have been a lot of question on the preparedness and the response capability of the Pakistan Army, Pakistan Air Force. And I think we should be proud of the Pakistan Air Force the way it did. Now the question of escalation depends on whether now India still remains in this belligerent mood and decides to get into the phase 2, because if it strikes now after today, that will be the phase 2 of this conflict. So the escalation would depend on that, on the scale, on the timing of the Indian counter response, just because Pakistan probably will find it very, very difficult to just stay as a silent spectator as the Indian missiles and drones come and maul and target inside Pakistan or even in Kashmir. So I think escalation, the ball, I think is very much in the court of India to call for an immediate halt to the entire operation by signaling peace, readiness to talk, just because whatever the Indians did was very clear. They jumped to the conclusion within minutes of the Pahalgam incident on April the 22nd. Without any proof, they launched this attack, which basically now clearly increasingly seems like having been a premeditated plan to engineer an incident and then immediately pounce upon Pakistan. So this has happened, and I think the next escalation and next step will largely depend on the Indian response to Pakistan's retaliation in the first place.